Welcome back. Let's continue. Okay, to test the hypothesis, we are having lot many different kind of tests present. Statistical tests are there. Out of it, the first and very commonly used test is called as the t-test. Generally, it's called a student t-test also. Okay, so what exactly the meaning is there? How the t-test is calculated and how it is used to test your hypothesis. So there are multiple statistical hypothesis tests out there, but each test aim to find if there is a there is a difference in one of the many statistical properties are there. Statistical properties that we have seen. So their comparison, their difference, their interpretation will show you that the hypothesis that you put is correct or it is up to the mark or not. Is it up to the mark or not? So statistical properties like standard deviation, average or variance, these are checked here using the test. Okay, for example, the test is used to t-test is used to determine if the mean average of two groups are truly different. Okay, the mean or average of two groups are truly different or not. This is the common idea which is used in the t-test. It's also called as the student t-test, not because it's used in the college, remember, but rather it's because of the inventor William Seeley Gosset. He has used this pseudonym to the test called as student t-test. Fine. Okay, so what exactly the student t-test shows it? Now when to use it first? We can use the t-test when you will be comparing the mean of two samples, means of two samples. If you have more than two samples, you have to run a pairwise t-test. So there are three different kind of t-tests present. We'll talk about that also. So based on the aim that we are having in mind, so we are using different kind of test here. So you have to use a pairwise t-test where then two samples are there, or we can use another test for hypothesis called as ANOVA test. That also we will talk about. That is analysis of variance test. Okay, it will be checked with the variance only. So when you don't know the population mean and the standard deviation, the t-test, you are comparing two samples of unknown population. Remember, unknown populations which is not known, just like a test data we apply. Correct. Train data we build the model, test data we check the model. Of course, cross validation. So similar idea of cross validation is used over here. When we are not knowing the population mean of that population and or the standard deviation, so we'll be making use of the test data to work on it. So sample is randomly chosen, a set of data point from the population. As we know population, we know sample is taken, and if you do know the population's mean and the standard deviation, we can use a Z test also. Z test is again another test that will be applied, but we are not having Z test. We'll be focusing on the T test only. Now, when we have a small number of samples, obviously samples are small. It's taken from as a snapshot from the population, a set of elements there. The t-test is commonly used when you have a less than 30 samples in each of the groups you are running on the t-test. 30 samples are very less are presented. Okay, like that. So if you are less than 30 samples in each of the groups, you run the t-test. If you can assume the population follow the normal distribution, population follows the normal distribution, the data presented, it's normally Gaussian distribution is there. That time will be using. We can. This is the assumption. These are the assumptions that we are using over there. Means there are no outliers. Equally spread data is present. So as mentioned previously, it's commonly used on small sample size. So you can use this test if the samples follow the normal distribution, and that's what is allowed. So we can. Last semester we had talked about the central limit theorem. Central limit theorem. So according to central limit theorem, if you just revise it, whatever number of classes you create, it will become more and more normal distribution, or it will create more and more bell curve there. Fine. So using that bell curve, normal distributed data, t-test will provide the most accurate results. We'll check it practically also, whether the bell curves are generated and whether the data is normal distributed or not. So there are three different type of t-test are there. Like first is independent sample t-test, second is paired sample t-test, and the third is one sample t-test. What's exactly the differences are there? Let's start with the first, independent sample t-test. Now in this type of test, you are comparing the average of two independent unrelated groups. Unrelated groups are there. They are not having any connectivity with them, and we'll be comparing these two average of that samples, meaning we are comparing the samples from two different population and are testing whether or not they are having different average, whether or not they are having a different average. So independent samples are taken. So samples are taken from two independent populations, and then we are comparing with them. A t-test is applied onto it. Second, paired sample t-test. So in this test, we compare the average of two samples taken from sample population but at different point of times. Data is same, but samples are taken from the same population, but different samples. Like for example, I have 1000 entries, and out of it, first 50 I have taken, and another 50 from 500 to 550 element are taken. So data is from the taken on the same samples. Now, the simple example would be when you would like to test the means of before and after the observation taken from the same target. Paired sample t-test will be used. So data set is from the same population, and then we compare the average or mean of them is called as paired sample t-test. Fine. And then the third is one sample t-test, which is very commonly used test. That also we will see. Here we test if the average of single group is different from known average or hypothesized average. Only single group is there. From the known average or hypothesized average is there. Only single sample is taken. Fine. That's called as one sample t-test. Okay. So depending on that, we'll be choosing, depending upon your hypothesis that we have put, we can use the respective test to prove that one. See this. T-test. It compares two averages or means that tells if they are different from each other. If they are different from each other. The t-test also tells you how significant the differences are. In other words, it lets you to know if those differences could have happened by chance or not. That happened by chance or not. See this one, which is students' t distributions are shown over here, where we are having a set of values. You can just observe the central one, which is having only single sample. Then how the distribution is there. When you have 5 samples, then how distribution is there. Then we have 110 samples, or we have 30 samples. Then how the distribution is there. The distribution is not changing. It is a bell curve. Normally distributed data is present in it. Just a simple idea. This is how student test will show you. And after that, we can prove that the samples are having similar average or different kind of average here. Yes. Fine. Again, they are just above each other. It's a bell curve. Probability distribution that we have seen last subject. So you'll be making use of yes, a bell curve created, a perfect distributed data. When we have single sample, 5 sample, 10 samples, or 30 samples, here it's the output. Now let's go with an example, simple example, and then we'll put in the programmatic format. Let's try to understand what do you mean by student t-test. So let's say you have a cold and you try naturalistic remedy. The cold lasts in couple of days. Okay, naturalistic remedy, and next time you have a cold, you buy an over-the-counter pharmaceutical, and cold lasts in a week. Example, let's see that's what exactly observations are. Natural Ayurvedic remedy, you can see, which is finished, by which your cold is finished in couple of days, in 2 days, and when you buy some over-the-counter pharmaceutical some medicine, and after 1 week it is completed. Okay, it is over. Fine. You survey your friends, and they will tell you that their colds were shorter duration, on average of 3 days, when they took the homeopathic remedy. Fine. So 3 things are there. So what you really want to know, are the results repeatable? Yes, repeatable. So 3 tests are there: naturalistic, that is Ayurvedic, homeopathic, and one that you are taken directly from the medical. Fine. The t-test can tell you comparing the mean of 2 groups and letting you know the probability of those results happening by chance or not. Probability of those results are happening by chance or not. That t-test will show you. Okay, so if it is proved, then we can put your hypothesis, and you can just you can prove, and you can put that, yeah, this is my hypothesis and this is the proof that it's correct. So you can either follow Ayurvedic remedy, you follow your own pharmaceutical, or you can follow homeopathic remedy over there. Let's see another example. Student t-test can be used in real life to compare means. For example, a drug company may want to test a new cancer drug medicine to find if it improves the life expectancy or not. Any testing, again, test, just like the vaccine tests are done for the COVID-19. So here similar examples are conducted. The company may want to test a new cancer drug to find out if it is improving the life expectancy or not. So in an experiment, there is always a control group, subgroup. There are some place or a sugar peel is there. The control group may show the average life expectancy of plus 5 years, while the group is taking a new drug might have a life expectancy of plus 6 years. Okay, control group is 5 years and they're taking a drug is plus 6 years are there. So it seems that the drug might work because its expectancy is more than 1 year there. Okay, but it could be a duty of flake. So to test that, researcher would use student t-test to find out the results are repeatable for entire populations or not. Fine. So results, you have these observations are great. Okay, this is fine. Any observation you can do, any hypothesis you can put, your observations are there. But to prove that, we have to check that they are by exception or they are repeatable. Repeatable means they are continuously they are done, or they are by some exception they are occurred. So these things we can identify. These are the example that we can use. These are the hypotheses that we can observe, and using that we can prove it. By using that we can use a t-test. But to t-test there is a score ratio we call as the t-score, which is used. What is the t-score? The t-score is the ratio between the difference between two groups and the difference within the groups. Difference between the two groups and difference within the groups, like intercluster and intra-cluster. Okay, intercluster, intra-cluster, intra and inter, the difference is there. That's what we are going to use it here. The larger the t-score, the more difference is there between the groups. Remember, smaller the t-score, the more similarity is there between the groups. The t-score of 3 means the groups are 3 times as different from each element as they are within each other. 3 times they are having a difference. If the t-score is 3, so t-score is identified using a t-test, and the t-score defines how close that results are together. The closeness of the result is identified with the help of the t-score. When you run a t-test, a bigger t-value, more likely that the results are repeatable. More likely the results are repeatable. Remember, so it should be as great as possible. A large t-score tells you that the groups are different, and small t-score tells you that the groups are similar. Groups are different and groups are similar. Okay, so this is what the idea of t-score is basically used. And now when you apply the t-test, then this t-value will be generated, and we'll see that how exactly this t-value is calculated. Now see, another value is there with the t-value is called as p-value. P is the probability value. Now, how big enough is that? So every t-value has a p-value to go with it. A p-value is the probability that the result from your sample data occurs by chance. Probability, possibility. Probability is there that the results in your sample data are occurred by chance. And obviously, every statistic probability starts from 0 to 100% in that particular value. Programmatically, these values are from 0 to 0.1. Okay, fine. 0 to 0.1 is written over there. And basically, yeah, that's what I shown here. For example, if p-value is 5%, that is 0.05. Low p-values are good. They indicate that your data did not occur by chance. Yes, they indicate that your data did not occur by chance. For example, if p-value is 0.01, it means that there is only 1% probability that the result from an experiment happened by chance. Yes. Remember, this is what the concept of p-value is, the probability value, which you connect with the t-value present here. So in most cases, the p-value is 0.05%. That is 5% actually. The probability value accepted to mean the data is valid. Means it's repeatable only by 5%. If it is 1%, repeatable only by 1%. Fine. Experiment happened by chance. Sorry, experiment happened by chance. That's what the value is there. Yes, this is how the considered t value and p value are there. We'll see that how it's calculated, and then we'll check that we can identify the hypothesis that we are putting is proved or not. Let us say we have to test whether the height of men in population is different from height of women in general. Yes, is it different? So we take a sample from population and use to test to see the results are significant or not. Now it is two sample. We are comparing sample of two, so men and women. I want to test it. So two different samples I want to check. So I'll be taking the data from sample of men, some sample of women there. Now determine, okay, how the steps are. 6 steps are required to perform this two sample t-test. The first case I told about the one sample t-test. The second is two sample t-test. So we are comparing the sample, two samples, pairwise test that we call. So data is taken from the same population, but the difference is that some are men and some are women. Determine a null and alternate hypothesis. First of all, what is your null hypothesis? What is the alternate hypothesis? Then collect the sample data. For all sample data will be collected for women and men heights. Then determine the confidence interval and degrees of freedom. Okay, this is what again statistical method that we have to apply. Confidence interval and degrees of freedom. After that, calculate the t-score, that is t statistic value. T statistic value. Calculate the critical t value from the t distribution and compare the critical t values with the calculated t values. T statistics, critical t values and the statistics. So this is how the comparison is done. These are the 6 steps are taken to perform the two sample t test. And the results will show you according to t-score, according to probability value, that whether the height of men is different from the height of women or not. Means every man height is different from every woman or not. Means they are up and down or low or high or not. That we can prove over here. Let's see the steps which are mentioned over here. How we'll go with that step by step. Okay, so 6 steps are there. Let's check the 6 steps for this particular case which are mentioned over here for two sample t-test. First of all, in first step I told you have to determine a null hypothesis and an alternate hypothesis. Okay, null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis. Now, in general, the null hypothesis will state that the two populations being tested have no statistical significance different. No statistically significant differences there. So alternate hypothesis will state that there is one present. And this example we can say that null hypothesis is height of men and women are same. It's a null hypothesis, let's say. An alternate hypothesis that I want to prove is height of men and women are different. Height of men and women are different. So first of all, we have to state this one, null hypothesis, and second is alternate hypothesis. Now step number 2, which is what we call as collecting the sample data. So next step is to collect the data for each population group. In this example, we'll collect 2 set of data, one with height of women and second is with the height of men. And then the sample size would ideally be the same, but it can be different also. Remember, so let's say that sample sizes are nx and ny. Nx, like, they are the number of samples for men, and ny is the number of samples for women. Fine. So we'll collect this data set. So most probably when you do the operation of t-testing, it's not compulsory to have same samples of data present there. You can have different samples of data also. That is also possible over here. Now step number 3, like determine the confidence interval and degrees of freedom. So what exactly is this? This is what we call as the alpha, the value of alpha. What is confidence interval? Now typical value of confidence interval is 0.05. 0.05. 0.05 is like an error present there over here. It means that there is a 95% confidence that the conclusion of this test will be valid. That is confidence interval we call. 95% confidence. Confidence is just like accuracy we can say. I can surely put that 95% this test is correct. So that is what we call a confidence interval, which value is put between 0 to 1. Okay, 0 to 1. So 0.05 means 5% is there, just like an error. So if you Subtracted 5% from 100 will get 95%, which is the confidence that the conclusion of this test will be valid. And then the degree of freedom, the second part, degree of freedom, that can be calculated by these formula. Like, what is that? Total number of element in the first population plus total number of element in second population minus 2. Okay, that's what Jayang applying here. This is the formula to calculate degree of freedom, DF in short mentioned. So confidence interval and degree of freedom, that is the step number 3, which is done. And then step number 4, these are the formulas to calculate the value of T statistics and samples. That is standard deviation here, present here. Standard deviation, that's we know already. Now see, calculate the T statistic. This is the brain of T test, that is T statistic, that can be calculated using the formula. You can see this, T is equal to mx minus my. So mx is the mean of first population minus my is the mean of second population, correct, divided by square root of sx square, means s is the sample, first sample, plus sy is the second sample, the square, divided by nx, n total number of element in the first group, ny total number of element in the second group. Getting? So using that, the T score is calculated. T statistic that we call is calculated. This is, remember this formula, which is the brain of the T test there, is calculated, and then second is the variance is calculated. So when mx and my are the mean values of two samples of male and female, nx and ny are the sample space of two sample S samples, and S is the standard deviation. So S is the standard deviation, S square is the variance, that's already we have seen. Okay, and here in this formula we have X as individual score, M is the mean that we know, and N total number of scores in the group. So by using this formula, variance is calculated, and square root of it is the deviation present inside this data set. This is what the brain, actually the T scores are calculated using this formula. Let's go ahead. Step number 5, calculate the critical T value from the T distribution. So to calculate critical T value, we need two things, the chosen value of alpha and the degree of freedom. That's what you are doing. What is alpha value? 0.05. Degree of freedom, accordingly we have calculated it. What is the number of element in first group plus second group minus 2. The formula of critical T value is complex, but it is fixed for fixed pair of degree of freedom and values of alpha. So if I given fixed, so that will be fixed. So already I have given value of fixed there. So we therefore use a table to calculate the critical T values. Now see this one, all the things which I can work on it, it's summarized here in it. And at the end, I have given the confidence level presented in. So here, see, cumulative probability is mentioned. Cumulative probability, okay, one tail and the two tails. Okay, so all of these values which are used, total 1000 samples are taken, and for every 1000 samples, I'm just using different kind of confidence levels here from 0, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 95, 98, 99, 98, 99.8, 99.9, go on. Okay, such like that. So whatever operations you done, the critical T values from the T distributions are calculated. You can see its value, what we have, 50%, T 0.5, 0.75, 0.8, 0.85, 0.90, 0.95, 975, 99, 995, 999, and 9995, something. You go on increasing this value, and accordingly will identify these populations. And at the end, I'm going to have the highest confidence level is 99.9% present over here. And after that, we compare the critical T values with the calculated T statistics. If the calculated T statistic is greater than the critical T value, the test conclude that there is statistically significant difference between the two populations there. Yes. Significant difference is present between the two populations, women population and men populations. Therefore, you reject the null hypothesis that there is no statistically significant difference between the two populations, and your alternate hypothesis can be proven. So in any case, there is no statistical significance difference between the two populations. The test fails to reject the null hypothesis we accept the alternate hypothesis which says that height of women and men are statistically different. Okay, that's what can be, alternate hypothesis can be proved by that. So null hypothesis will be now completely rejected. I will be having another hypothesis that height of men and women are different. Okay. Also that populations, and then providing the steps one by one ahead, finding the critical t values and using t statistics, okay, which we have seen, we can just compare it, use a confidence interval, make it changing, make it more confident, and at the end we can identify whether you are going to reject the null hypothesis or accept the null hypothesis. So here in this case, the null hypothesis which we have considered, that women and men are equal height, that is rejected, and we are accepted that they are statistically different. Basically, that is what is a common sample t test that we can use over here. Fine. Let's see few things practically, because it's very big example which I shown over here. I'll show you some random data, and in that how t statistics values are calculated, and how the probability value, that is t statistics score, and the p values are calculated, that we will see. Let's just a minute. We'll check it out. For an example, means how programmatically it's possible, that we'll see. Just a minute. Yeah. Now see this. So many things I put in the comments also. By this we can identify what exactly the meaning of the statements are. You can check it out. So I'm using the array. That's why I imported the NumPy function, NumPy package over here. And for statistical operations of t-test, I'm using the stats package present in the SciPy. So inside that we can have the test conducted. Okay, so this is what we imported. And now I am creating two random distributions here of some sample of n number of element. Here you can see the Gaussian distribution data with mean 2 and variance is equal to 1. So here we are going to have the random function to work with. np.random, random is a package answer that rand n function is there, which is used to generate some random element present here, 10, and I'm adding 2 inside it. So there's a small difference of 2 that we can get. And again another Gaussian distribution, normal distributed data with random n, just I'm calculating, you can see this one. And if you just print it there, what exactly A is containing, see the first element, random distributed data between, okay, some n number of element I have taken and I have added 2 inside it. Fine, this is A, and see the B, 10 elements are there. These are the B calculated. I just want to have a difference between them. That's why this 2 is added there. Okay, this function of random and rand n, random package, and rand n is to generate the set of elements. So length of both, you can see how many number of elements are there. Okay, they are same in both of them. Fine. Okay, so randomly they are created. I am not actually giving this value by my own. Okay, now calculate the standard deviation. Calculate the variance to get a standard deviation. That's what we can have. Standard deviation is directly calculation is also possible there. But for unbiased maximum likelihood estimate, we have to divide variance by n-1. Therefore, the parameter DDOF is passed over here. You can see a dot var. So variance can be calculated var A and var B. See this one. So both are calculated here, calculating the variance to get a standard deviation. And here, standard deviation of both their combinations I have done, added them together, both of their variances added and divided by 2, and then a square root is calculated. Means the deviation of the whole data I have calculated, that deviation is 1.15 means all 20 elements are taken, variance of them separately, and their average variance, and average variance square root I calculated is called a standard deviation. So 1.15 is there, and the formula to calculate the t statistic, that's what we have seen on the slide. A mean minus B mean divided by S standard deviation into square root of 2 divided by n. Okay, that is what t statistic is there, and you can see the value of t statistics. I'll show you that print also. Okay, so this formula is used. T statistic value is calculated by this formula, which was shown in the mathematical format on the presentation, and then compare with the critical t values or degrees of freedom. So 2 into n minus 2. So degrees of freedom df is calculated. Then the p value calculated. So p is calculated by using this formula 1 minus stats dot t dot cdf of t, and where I am passing the confidence interval here. This one, degrees of freedom, sorry. Degrees of freedom is applied, df is equal to df. Its parameter is present there, cdf. This function is to apply and make use of degrees of freedom, and based on that we calculate the p value there, and you can see this p value. Now t is equal to 2.96 and the probability value is 0.008, means it is 0.8% only. It's possible that it will fail. Probability is there. Fine. So this is how the steps which we have seen, 6 steps are there. We can make use of this, use this data, then perform further operation to provide the values, critical t values. Sorry, first of all we are going to calculate variance, then deviation, use that value in t statistics, calculate t statistics, use the degree of freedom. After that we can compare that with the value of t, and I'm printing them. So t statistic value is 2.96 here. It's almost equal to 3, almost equal to 3. And if you check the value of p, that is probability of being this theory wrong, is 0.008. 0.008, that is 0.8% actually if you multiply it by it. And now whatever steps I have done, I don't want that. I want to perform these independent standard t-test on the given data directly. The steps are taken. I have just separated these steps in programmatic format, but I don't want that. I want the data to be directly to be done in the from the given data set. Okay, so we'll cross check. There's a function in stats package of SciPy. It's called a t test underscore ind a comma b. So a is the first population, b is the second population that we have added. Okay, and this function returns the value of t, it returns the value of p also. So the value returned by it, first value in t I am storing in t2, second value I am storing in p2. Means whatever steps I have done above, these steps are not required. I'll directly use the inbuilt function here, and let's see this one. Check it out. The values are same. Values generated are, this value is exactly same. Okay, here we have a small difference at the end. If 58 is there, here is 94, but it's okay, it is 8% only. Probability being the populations of mean difference is wrong, 0.8% only. And t score is very high, that is 2.96, that we can see present over here. So independent sample t test only. Independent means two different groups are there. They are taken from two different populations, and then we are performing hypothesis testing on that. Will be done by this particular method, independent sample test. So what the effect of t score, what's the effect of p score, p values there, that's already we have seen. So by using that you can identify or you can find the statistical values from it. Here important thing is to note the p. What's the probability of bit, the mean are completely different, is 0.8% only. And even we can have the data distribution also. Wait a minute, I'll show data distribution also. So we need to apply some functions. The example that I think we have seen yesterday, wait a minute. Data distribution means data is in normal distributed format or not. Okay, if the data is normal distributed format, then your result will be shown in the graphical format also. Wait a minute. Yeah, see this. Just a minute. it's hypothesis testing. So similar function I've used. I'll be showing you the normal distributed by using a KDE plot. See, so here I'm taking some n number of samples, and by using the random Gaussian distribution data, I'm conducting it. Okay, total 55 elements. Okay, from in the range, I'm taking one by one. So similar conduction of Gaussian distribution. Gauss function is used to generate the data in Gaussian distribution format. Means not exactly bell curve, but somewhat normal distributed data is generated. So A and B, two are taken here. I'll show you both A and B here. See, A, this is A generated data. This one, A data, random data is there. And this is B data. Second population that we can have. And if you have a plot of it, you can see this plot. Just shown KDE plot is there. SNS, that is Seaborn package contains a KDE plot by which you can see the data in the normal distributed formats in the KDE kernel density estimation that we call. In that format, where the high population there, low population is there, that we can use to show that one, KDE plot. And using it, you can see, I think it was visible. Yeah, see this one. This is the first population. See, I think colors are not mentioned over here. Yes, not mentioned. So one population is this, which is orange, and another population is the blue one. That is A and B, and you can see their probability of being. So it's like a bell curve. Normal, almost normal distributed data is there, but there is a difference present in it. Here, these are differences. That's what we can see. And because of that, exact operations are not possible. So you can see this, the P value which we can see, it is 0.27, and T statistic value is 1.08 for independent sample T test. This one. And using KDE plot, we can just check it out. In this way, we can compare two different samples. Okay. And more tests that we can do. Getting this value. One sample test. This is the one sample test. But if you want to apply one sample T test, the function is T test one SAMP, one SAMP, which is applied. And for the same case also, we can calculate the value of T statistics, and we can calculate the value of P. So here it is 53%. Remember, 53% is actually a large number, but probability should approach towards 0 as low as possible. T statistic value is also very low, 0.6. It's also so. For one sample T test that can be directly performed using the same function, we can calculate. So both, when you apply the function, will generate the P value also and the T value also. Okay, like that. So it's possible to apply that T test on the data set, and based on that, we can conclude, or we can test that the samples means average are same or they are different. So let's continue with another different kind of test which is present for the, or which is applicable to the testing of hypothesis. Okay. So before proceeding that, we need to understand few things, because the test is connected to that kind of variable. Categorical variable, we know that. Categorical variable, when the data is containing a set of categories, it's called as a categorical variable. Categorical variable fall into a particular category of those variables that can be divided into finite categories. These categories are generally names or the labels. These labels are called as qualitative variables, as they depict the quality of characteristics of that particular variable there. Let's see that. Movie genre, a list of movies that could contain the categorical variable like action, fantasy, comedy, romance. Categories are present in this data. 4 categories are there. Or we are having atmosphere. So atmosphere can be windy, can be rainy, can be sunny, like all. Okay. So categories are there. They are called as categorical variable. Either these values present in numerical format in 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 something, or they can be present in the string format. They are called as categorical variables. So most of the time in a data set, we have the categorical variable as the output. When we apply the classification kind of algorithms, so your output variable is in the form of a category. Fine. So this is categories, and under categorical variable, again, different sort of variables are there. That's in common. 2 kind of categorical variables are present. The first one are called as nominal variables. Nominal. So nominal variable has no natural ordering to its variable. Ordering is not there. there will having multiple categories, like for example, marital status, single, married, divorced, or gender, male, female, transgender, etc. Okay, this, there is very sequence present there. It can be first, second, third, we can change it, doesn't matter. That is a nominal variable, first kind of categories. And second kind of category variable is called as the ordinal variable. Ordinal variable is a variable for which categories can be placed in an order. In an order. For example, customer satisfaction. Excellent, very good, good, average, bad, very bad, worst, like that. So this is what we call as the ordinal variables. They are stored in an order, but categories are there, or we'll be having first class, second class, third class, fourth class, something like that. Okay, so these kind of variables are present. They are having an order present in it, called as the ordinal variables. So when the data we want to analyze contain this type of variable, we turn to the chi-square test. Chi-square test. Okay, which is denoted by x square to test our hypothesis. Now, the analysis that we have done using the first student t-test, where we are comparing the continuous variable against each other. Continuous variables are there, but if you don't want continuous variables, we are having the categorical variable in the test. So we will be applying a chi-square test now. This is chi-square statistics is applicable in such kind of the cases. So what exactly the chi-square statistics is, that we will see now. We'll see the thing practically also. Yes. So chi-square is used for goodness of fit. It's a goodness of fit test. Okay. What is that? So chi-square goodness of fit test is a statistical hypothesis test used to determine whether a variable is likely to come from specific distribution or not. Is likely to come from specific distribution or not. It is often used to evaluate whether the sample data is representative of the full population. Yes, just like yesterday I have told about the example to differentiate between sample or the population there. Sample and population. So we do the surveys. Surveys are conducted not on the whole population, they are conducted on a sample and applicable to the whole populations. Now we just have to make sure that this sample is applicable to the whole population or representative of the whole population or not. That is done with the help of chi-square test, which is we call as this chi-square goodness of fit test. Okay, when can I use this test? So we can use the test when we have a count of values for a categorical variable. Count of values. Okay, so how many counts are the particular variable? So that time we'll be making use of chi-square test. See, the sample that you are conducting, it should be representative of all the categories present in the population. Okay, you are taken a sample and you have taken sample of only male entries, not female are not considered there. It is not goodness of fit. Means all the categories present populations are not equally involved in that. Correct? Fine. That's what chi-square test will show you. And it's named as Pearson's chi-square test. Even Pearson is a good statistician. He has given many contribution to the statistics. One more method is that I'll show you. It's not a, it's a correlation test basically. That also we'll talk about. Okay. So it's called as Pearson's chi-square test. And the common idea is to apply and make use of the goodness of fit test here in the chi-square. How exactly it works? Let's take an example first. Very big example is there. Let's focus on it. Let's learn the use of chi-square with an intuitive example here. Let's say a research scholar is interested in the relationship between placement of student and the statistics department of a reputed university and their CGPA. That is final assessment score is there. Okay, their placement and the CGPA. CGPA is actually a continuous variable. We might be knowing CGPA. Okay, so their score and the placement of student, is there a relationship present there or not? So he obtains the placement record of past 5 years from the placement sale databases at random. There's not only all data set, but randomly he has taken the data for past 5 years placement record for a particular college. Okay, he records how many students who got placed fail into each of the following categories. So four categories are taken there, like 9 to 8, 9 to 10 CGPA, 8 to 9 CGPA, 7 to 8 CGPA, and 6 to 7 and below 6 CGPA. So five categories are created, and we have to identify how many counts are there in each of the categories present there. Okay, for each of the categories, how many students have placed according to the CGPAs. Okay, now if there is no relationship between the placement rate and the CGPA, then the placed student should be equally spread across the different CGPA categories. Correct. If same numbers are there in all, remember, so spread will be same. So there is no any difference. Correct. Okay, there should be similar number of placed student in each category. Okay, so in first category 10, second 12, first 11, next is 10, last is 12, something, all are same. So you identify that there is no any similarity, there is no any connection present between CGPA and the count total element. But second part. However, if students are having CGPA more than 8 are more likely to get placed, then there would be a large number of placed students in the higher CGPA categories as compared to the lower CGPA categories. Correct. This is your previous assumption. We know that everyone is having the common sense, can identify. Like students are having 9 to 10 CGPA or more, then 8 to 9 are again somewhat less than, but more than the previous categories are there. So can identify. Okay, so the data that you collect, that will show these observed frequencies perfectly. Data collected and result obtained. Yes, there is a relationship that we can see, up and downs are present there. So which patterns? Maybe pattern are present, not present, can use it. So the question is, are these frequencies being observed by chance or do they follow the same pattern? Whether you are equal and not equal means just a graph is there. Low CGPA to high CGPA placement graph is increasing. Is it there? Okay, you can observe that, but is it the universal rule? Universal means college rule. Means every time you are getting similar kind of idea or not. So we can enforce student to get more and more CGPA if it is proved. Then, so here enters the chi-square test. In this case, we can apply the chi-square test. The chi-square test help us answer the above question by comparing the observed frequencies to the frequencies that we might expect to obtain purely by chance. Yes, frequencies. Frequencies are, like we know, it's like a histogram where we have how many count are there for this category. This sequence are present that will be using, and here chi-square test is applicable for such cases. There are some assumptions that we can apply to the test here. Assumptions are very important to note. Assumption like x square is a chi-square test. So name given is square, that's why it is x square. Make sure that's why the name is x square. It assumes that the data for the study is obtained through random selection. They are randomly picked from the population. Yes, not sequentially, randomly. Sequentially, why sequentially not? Because maybe the data that you are using is sorted. So sorted data is not considered in any of the statistical methods. Random data accessing and the generation should be done. Okay, second is the categories are mutually exclusive. That is, each subject fits in only one category. Each subject fits only in one category. For example, the number of people who launch your restaurant on Monday can't be filled in the Tuesday category. Correct. So you are launching Monday final, not Tuesday. So remember, there should not be present in multiple categories there. So in this example, like one student who placed, okay, is in 8 to 7 category also, and 7 to 9 category, sorry, 8 to 9 and 9 to 10 category also. It will not happen basically. But that is mutual exclusion that should be present. The third, the data should be in the form of frequencies or counts of particular category, not in the percentages. Correct. Percentage should not be, it should be frequency. How many elements are there within that category? Percentage is not, means 100%, 20% here, 25 here, 13 here, 15 here. No, count is required for the chi-square test. Fourth one, data should not consist of paired samples or groups. Okay, pair samples or groups, or we can say that the observation should be independent of each other. Observations should be independent of each other. This is actually almost every test contains this kind of assumption present. And the last one, more than 20% of expected frequencies have a value less than 5, then chi-square cannot be used. Frequencies less than 5, then we cannot use the chi-square test. So to tackle this problem, either one should combine the categories only if it is relevant or obtain more data. Let's say for 7 to 8 category, only 2 people are there. Frequencies are 2. Not possible. So we can combine multiple categories. So 5 to 6, for example, sorry, 6 to 7, only 2 are there. So we'll have 6 to 8 directly. So 6 to 8, when you combine the categories, we'll get more students there. So as you increase the count, we'll have a good result from the chi-square test. Okay. So these are the common assumptions that we need to ensure before actually applying the chi-square test on the given data set. Yes, let's continue with that. So this test is a non-parametric test. Non-parametric test means there is no any fixed kind of formula present there. Means depending upon data, it will modify it. We typically use it to find how the observed values of given event is significantly different from the expected values. In this case, we have categorical data for one independent variable. Categories are there. And we want to check whether the distribution of data is similar or different from the expected distribution. Similar or different from the expected distribution. That's what we are going to see. So in this example of CGPA, where the research scholar was interested in the relationship between the placement of student of statistic department with their CGPA. Okay, so department doesn't matter. We just focus on the placement and the CGPA present in that. So in this case, independent variables of CGPA with categories 8 to 9 to 10, 8 to 9, 7 to 8, 6 to 7, and below 6. 5 categories are there. That's what is finalized. Yes. So these are the 5 categories that which we have seen present. Now our question. The statistical question here is that whether or not the observed frequencies of placed students are equally distributed for different CGPA, so that our theoretical frequencies distribution contain the same number of students for each categories. So we will arrange this data by using contingency table. So first step is to find the contingency table. What is contingency table? Okay, what exactly? So this consists of both observed and expected values. Revise the concept of confusion matrix we have seen in machine learning. So machine learning is that confusion matrix, which is a measurement of categorical variables and expected and predicted. Fine. So if you compare that, that's called a contingency table. So this table is used to count or to show relationship between the count of expected values and the predicted values, observed values, and predicted expected values, like all that we can see. Check it out. This is your contingency table, CGPA. Now here we can see the observed value. Total number of elements are, for example, 100 are present there. Observed frequency of placed students. See this. Observed. Now see what I want to check that all they are equal or not. Correct, equally placed or not. 100% is the equal placement between 2020 2020 will be there. This is your expected frequency of student. What I expect, I want similar observations. What I expect, 2020 2020 20. So you can see this expected frequency of placed student 2020 2020 2020. 100 total are 100 and observed frequency are like this. Below 6, 5 students are placed. Okay, 6 to 7, 10 are placed. 8 to 7, sorry, 7 to 8, 20. 8 to 9, 35. 9 to 10, 30. Fine, and this is your expected frequencies. 5 categories expected at 20, 20, 20, 20, 20 should be present. Equal distribution should be there, but it is not the case. Now, here we use the chi-square formula to find the chi-square values. See, after constructing the contingency table, the next task is to compute the value of chi-square statistic, just like t statistics we applied in the previous case. Here you apply the chi-square statistics like this. X square is equal to, okay, so basically see, if you see the x is the, it's a Roman symbol, his name is chi, chi, remember, is equal to, for all value of I, OI, that is observed frequency, minus expected frequency, okay, their square. So this value will become positive always, divided by expected frequency. So you can see observed frequency is here, expected frequency is below, correct? Just subtracted it, divided by expected frequency. We got chi-square value here. Fine. Now what's the interpretation now? What exactly meaning of chi-square status? Now see, so all the steps I have summarized over here. What formula is there? I have summarized all the steps in. Step number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. First of all, subtract each expected frequency from the related observed frequency. For example, for category 10 to 9, there will be 30 minus 20. Expected is 20. Predicted is, generated, observed is 30. Difference is 10. We'll apply to all the categories there. That's what we are having. In first case, we have different 10. Here we have 15, 0, 10, 15. Correct. It's done. Now second, square each value obtained from the step 1, that is O minus E square. For example, for the CGPA category 2 9, value obtained is 10, it become 100. Okay, it will be applied to everyone. Maybe first number is greater than, the first number is less than second number, value will become negative, but after squaring it, it will become positive. Okay, then third, divide all the values obtained in step 2 by related expected frequency, that is divided by E. For example, 9 to 10, the value up to 100. On dividing the expected frequency is 20, it will become 5. 100 divided by 5. Apply the similar operation categories there. Yes, that is step number 3. Step number 4 now. Add all values, that's summation. Add all the values obtained in step number 3 to get chi-square value. In this case, the chi-square value comes out to be 32.5. All the summation. You're done. So value will become 32.5. And step number 5. Once you have calculated the chi-square value, the next task is to compare it with the critical chi-square value. We can find in this by below. I can show the table for calculating a degree of freedom, which is number of categories minus 1 will be degree of freedom, and the level of significance there. You can see this one. Degree of freedom is applied above first. Okay, number of observations, and you can see the value of chi-square distribution there, where degree of freedom is 0.99, 0.975, 95, 90, 10, 0.5, 0.5, 0.25, 0.01, like all. Accordingly, we can check this out all. So how it is changing? That's what this distribution of chi-square value can be shown over here. Starting from some infinite value. Infinite is actually for 99 and degree of freedom. Not generate any kind of value till 0.001, 0.004, 0.16 till 50.892. So the distribution of the whole is done here. How it's affecting that we'll see. Now in this case, degree of freedom is 4 because we have 5 categories, correct? 5 categories are there. So the critical value at 5% level of significance is 9.49. Okay, so we have degree of freedom 4. Okay, so you can just observe here in this degree of freedom which we have mentioned, degrees of freedom is mentioned as 4. So degrees of freedom is 4. Okay, this one. Okay, and here is a confidence value 0.5. So the value is here 9.488. Yes, 9.49 is mentioned there with 5% level of significance. Here 5% is there. Okay, so the value you can see at degree of freedom, it is 4, and if you just go with this, here value is there 9.488, 0.05 for 4. So categories minus 1, That's what we are using, degrees of freedom, and the level of significance is 5%. So its value is this. And now our obtained value is 32.5, which is much large. This is what the critical value is. Critical value is 9.49 by obtained by this particular table. The table is shown over here. What we have obtained by formula is 32.5. It is much larger than the critical value 9.49. Therefore, we can say that the observed frequencies are significantly different from the expected frequencies. Yes, significantly different are there. Expectation is 20, 20, 20, but it's not. There's a huge difference present in this. In other words, CGPA is related to the number of placement that occur in the Department of Statistics. They are related with that. What we have seen, we have observed, we have seen that is there no relation there, 20, 20, 20, equal distribution, but it is making it false because obtained value and critical value is having a huge difference present. Okay, almost 3 times more than that, 3 times more than that, much larger than it. That's why they are not independent, they are dependent. They are dependent. That's what chi-square test will tells us. So in obtained value, critical value should be close to each other to show the dependency of input and categorical output variable. Remember, so before proceeding, I'll show the example of this also. But before that, we'll take a short break of 3 minutes and we'll continue the remaining topic after that, the practical part of it and the remaining tests which are now there in the statistical inference. Thank you.